Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Today I'm going to be talking about NASCAR and talking a little about the Clemson spring game from yesterday. But before I get into those topics, let me first say that I've got a shout out coming up at the end of the video. So please stay tuned for those. But first we'll start with the Xfinity race from Friday night. Brandon Jones comes home with the victory. And by the way, they say if your mama names you Brandon, she really loves you. He scores his 5th career win, first this season. Landon Castle gets his best career finish, coming home in 2nd, followed by A.J. Allmendinger, Austin Hill, and Sam Mayer. 6 through 10 was Riley Herbst, Ryan Truex, Ty Gibbs, Ryan Sieg, and Jeremy Clements. And the Xfinity boys are off next weekend. They get Easter weekend off. It'll be their first off week of the season. But a few quick thoughts on the race. The actual race was really good. It was overshadowed by what happened after the race, but it was a dash for cash race, and A.J. Allmendinger was the highest finisher of the 4 eligible drivers, so he comes home with $100,000 extra, so not a bad payday if you're A.J. Allmendinger and Colleague Racing. But if you saw the race, you've seen this highlight numerous times. Even if you didn't see the race, I'm sure you've seen this highlight at least once, and that was the Ty Gibbs and Sam Mayer fight, if you want to call it fight, in pit road after the race. And if you're Ty Gibbs, if you're going to fight somebody, I won't say the word because this is a family channel, but don't be a word that rhymes with the old deodorant, Tussie. If you're going to try to fight somebody, at least take your helmet off when you fight them so that they can defend themselves. But Ty Gibbs goes after Sam Mayer, and he's still wearing his helmet, so Sam Mayer cannot defend himself. But Ty Gibbs wants to go around and wreck everybody at every racetrack every week, but then the first time somebody touches him, he wants to fight. If you're going to be man enough to wreck everybody else, then you should be okay with somebody putting the bumper to you. But Sam Mayer did get a black eye because of that, but he said the punches were very weak. But it was a really good race, and it's funny because if you're a longtime NASCAR fan, you know this, but it seems like the person that is the most talented, and I'm just talking about as far as driving ability. I'm not talking about who you drive for. I'm not talking about what engine you've got. I'm not talking about your pit crew. I'm talking about just the driver themselves behind the wheel driving a race car. It seems like the person that's always the most talented is always the most hated. When I first got into NASCAR in the mid to late 90s, it was Jeff Gordon, and it was clear that Jeff Gordon was the most talented driver in NASCAR at the time, and everybody hated him. But they only hated him because he was so good. So when somebody's good, it's just human nature. You get jealous. And Jeff Gordon got booed everywhere he went just because he was good. And then in the 2010 decade, if you want to call it that, slightly before that, Kyle Busch came along. And Kyle Busch to this day is still the most talented driver in the Cup Series. And he gets booed everywhere he goes. But most of the reason why Kyle Busch got booed was because of the fact when he started, he was young, he was brash, he was arrogant, and Kyle Busch loved himself some Kyle Busch. But now if you pay attention to keep up with it, Kyle Busch is nowhere near the man he was 10 years ago. But so many people still hate Kyle Busch because of how he was 15 years ago. The only downfall Kyle Busch has now is that Kyle Busch gets mad when he don't win. But to me, that's not a downfall. You're out there because you should want to win. And now everybody hates Ty Gibbs already because you're Joe Gibbs' grandson. So people already think that you're in there only because who your granddaddy is. So don't give them extra reason to hate you. Don't go around wrecking everybody, but then when somebody wrecks you, you think they're in the wrong. Right is right. If it's wrong for them to wreck you, it's wrong for you to wreck them. That's just the way it is. So don't be a word that rhymes with the deodorant, tussy. But on to the cup race from last night. William Byron comes home with the victory. And who would have ever thought that the first repeat winner of the season would be William Byron? He only had 2 career wins in his first 4 seasons, and he already has 2 wins. This year, Joey Logano comes home second, Austin Dillon third, Ryan Blaney fourth, and Ross Chastain fifth. Kurt Busch and Kyle Busch come home 6th and 7th. Eric Almirola 8th. Chase Briscoe 9th. And Chase Elliott 10th. And the Cup Series is in action this Easter weekend. They're at Bristol Sunday night at 7 o'clock for the Bristol Dirt Race. I know in years past the Cup Series has been off on Easter weekend, but not this year. They will be racing this weekend. They're normally off for Easter and Mother's Day. This year they're racing on Easter and Mother's Day weekend. But of all the 8 races so far this year, last night's race has been the worst. That's just my opinion. Not that it was a overall bad race. It's just it was Martinsville, and the race lasted 2 hours and 40 minutes. So that tells you that there was not many cautions, and there was only 4, and the 4th and final caution came out with 5 laps to go, so it caused a green-white checker overtime finish. But Chase Elliott led all of stage 1, and Chase Elliott led all of stage 2. And then after that, it was pretty much William Byron the second half of the race. The only laps of the race that were not led by either William Byron or Chase Elliott were when everybody was making green flag pit stops and everybody didn't pit on the same lap, and there was a few lead changes then, but outside of that, it was William Byron or Chase Elliott the entire race, and that kind of race can get boring. But of course, my man Kyle Busch comes home 7th, so I thought it was a pretty good race. But out of all the 8 races so far this year, it was definitely the one that had the least amount of action on the track. It's very odd and very strange to see a Martinsville race with that few amount of cautions, but it was not a bad race. It just was not a great race. But like I said, back in action this Sunday night at Bristol for the Bristol Dirt Race. So if you want to see some cautions, this Sunday night will be the race you want to watch. And then I'll make a few quick comments about the Clemson spring game yesterday, only because I know I have a lot of Clemson friends that watch the channel. I personally don't put any stock at all in the spring game. I never have. I just watch it because it's Clemson and they're my team. So if they're on TV, I'm going to watch. But so many people put so much stock into their team's spring game. And every team does their spring game in a different way. Dabo's always done it to where the starting quarterback's on one side, the backup quarterback is on the other side. The starting running back is on one side, the backup running back is on the other side. He takes the top 4 receivers, puts 2 on one side, 2 on the other side. That way it's evened out all the way down the line on both sides. So you have orange and you have white. Of course, you had DJU as the orange quarterback in the first half and freshman Cade Klubnik as the white quarterback in the first half. The only touchdown that was scored in the first half was by the orange, but it was not a DJU pass. It was a 6-yard run by Phil Maffa. But even though I put nothing at all in the spring games, I put even less in this year's spring game. Most people, if their offense does good, they say, boy, the defense sucks. But then if the offense looks bad, you say, well, the defense is good. But in this case, I put even less than usual, because if you follow Clemson, you know that Phil Maffa started as the Orange team running back, but the other two great running backs, Will Shipley and Kobe Pace, were both out. You had two receivers from last year's team, E.J. Williams and Bo Collins, that were already out. And then you had a freshman incoming receiver that tore his ACL this past week, so he was out. And then you had another receiver, the other Collins, Dakari Collins, he got hurt in the game yesterday. Your starting tight end was out. Your backup tight end was out. Your offensive line was so depleted from an offensive line that was already complete garbage last year, and it was so depleted yesterday that a guy that really should be a starting senior in high school this year finished high school early to come to Clemson and try to learn to try to be ready in case of emergency come season time. He had to start yesterday because of all the linemen that were out hurt. So you basically had nobody as far as skill players on either side of the ball for the offense. So the offense is not going to be great, but it's going to be better than what you saw yesterday. And the defense is going to be just as good as it was last year. And then a lot of people are up in arms because of what Dabo said yesterday. And it never ceases to amaze me how everything Dabo says is 100% spot on. But because Dabo says it, everybody has a fit. And all he said was he thinks college football needs some kind of preseason or spring or something because every other league has it. And he's right. Middle school football does it. High school football does it. The NFL does it. Why can't college football do it? And he was right. He was saying if you're already, injury depleted and you're already out there with 25, 30 guys that can't play because they're injured, you're taking the guys that you have left and taking a bigger risk of getting guys injured because both sides of the ball for 3 hours is your own players. Whereas if you scrimmage with another team, then all your players don't have to play. That's all he was saying. He's 100% spot on. There's no reason that high school football has a jamboree, which is about 14, 16 teams going to one neutral field, and each team plays each other for a half. High school football can do it, but college football can't do it. So Dabo was 100% spot on, but because since Dabo said it, it's a big deal. But I will say that after the game, even though it was really, really cold yesterday in Clemson, Dabo Swinney came out of the locker room. He saw all the press, all the reporters that were all gathered around wanting to ask questions, and Dabo stood there and answered every single question. And one reporter, whose name I did not catch, actually said that he wished he would have asked for an autograph and a picture because he's been doing this for years and been all over the country. He has never seen a coach be as nice and polite as Dabo was. That's just Dabo Swinney. That's how Dabo is. So it's always good when I hear outsiders talk about the kind of man that Dabo Swinney is, but it never ceases to amaze me how Dabo says stuff that's 100% accurate, but everybody has a fit about it because Dabo says it. But if somebody else says it, it's not a big deal. But when Dabo says it, it's the end of the world. But he's right. How come high school football can have, I guess you want to call it preseason, and we know the NFL has preseason, but college football can't have preseason? I mean, if you're a fan of your college team, whoever it is, you would a whole lot rather see them line up in a spring game against another team than line up against their own team. You wouldn't see a whole lot more, but you would see a little bit more. But the second half yesterday was basically guys that aren't even going to play this year, but they had to play yesterday because Clemson had so many guys that were out hurt. So if you're one of those fans that puts stock into a spring game, do not put any stock into the offense you saw yesterday. If you look at the quarterback's numbers, Cade Klubnik had a higher completion percentage than DJ did, but DJ had fewer completions, but he had way more yards, and that was because when DJ was throwing the ball, they were going downfield. When Cade was throwing the ball, they were going like 4 yards and in. Plus, DJ had 3 easy passes. They hit the receivers right in the hands and they were all three dropped, and that would have gave DJ way, way, way more yards. But DJ does look extremely trimmed down, and I still say he may not finish the season as a starting quarterback, but I still say game one, the starting quarterback will be DJ. I might be wrong. That's just my opinion. I think he'll start the season on Labor Day night as the starting quarterback. My shout out today goes out to Miss Sonia. She lives in the upstate of South Carolina, and she is a big Clemson fan, and she subscribed to the channel yesterday. And Sonia, thank you so much for subscribing. Give the video a thumbs up. Tell your friends, tell your family, and please help the channel continue to grow. And if you do so choose to comment on any video at any time, you'll be eligible for our 1,000 subscriber giveaway. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Someone has glued my deck of cards together, and I don't know how to deal with it. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.